This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead here on this Sunday morning, live from the Saratoga backstretch. Seth Merrill, Steve Bick. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Have you been here for 72 straight hours?
No, yeah, Saturday off. Saturday off.
Took Saturday off?
Slept in.
Really?
Actually slept in.
How about that?
Yeah, it's crazy. But other than that, I had been here for quite a while straight, and we'll continue to do so until, well, I get Saturdays off. But we'll continue to be working hard through Labor Day, but it's a labor of love.
Well put.
I try. Sometimes we score, sometimes we don't. But a good show today. Coming up a little bit later on, George Weaver won the stake on Friday with Daddy is a Legend. Going to talk about that and some of his upcoming runners. Richard Migliore will join us. Mike Welch, of course, from the Daily Racing Forum, doing the great Clockers report that they do up here every summer. So big show for today.
I thought so, and we were going to have Mark Cassie with us. Mark had to get called off campus, so we'll catch up with Cassie, but Cassie off to a big start. In fact, Cassie and Weaver kick off on Friday, and just a glorious day. I'm sure a lot of this has been covered the last 2 days on here on the network, but you couldn't have had a better Friday, Saturday opening to the meet. Big throngs. Crazy crowd, frankly.
33 on Friday.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the weather was gorgeous both days.
Perfect.
So, no surprise. And speaking of that, Chris Kay was in here yesterday with Brian Addo. Talked a little bit about their new feature at the top of the stretch and what were the last couple of sections of the grandstand, now called the stretch and the upgrade. I walked up there yesterday at the end of the day and took some pictures because you probably heard the same thing. People are raving about the place. People who are up there.
Gorgeous.
There was Matt Hunter from Time Warner, Spectrum now, Spectrum News, did a nice little piece that you can probably catch all day on Spectrum where he was interviewing people who were kind of sitting there and they were giving raves to the place. But again, I walked up at the end of the day and it's a great new option, and you and I talked about it last week in anticipation. It was an area of the track that just was totally underutilized, and so now to have this place jam-packed every day from a business standpoint, it's just like a home run.
No doubt about it. And people have mentioned, you've mentioned, that when you were on the other side, over on the backstretch,
Wednesday or Thursday.
Every day except Saturdays, and frankly, even most Saturdays, the number in terms of ticket sales in the last two sections were 16% used over the course of a meet. Well, this has already been sold out. It's got kind of that different vibe and different feel, but it's done in a really tasteful manner, and it just fits this whole redevelopment theme that is going to continue around the first turn and with the ongoing project that was necessary to give the facility some modern accoutrements that are just needed in today's sports landscape. It's just that simple. And I know some people are saying, oh, the charm. Well, Wrigley Field and Fenway Park and anything else that has got 100 years plus of history needs to be brought into the au courant style. It's just the marketplace demands it.
Yeah, I heard a couple of complaints, not from people who had been there, because as I say, it's raves, but just people who kind of, there's nostalgia, and I get it, people are kind of tied in, but as I say, when you get to the practicality of it, where those two sections weren't getting used.
If you want nostalgia, you can sit 15 feet on the wooden seats that have been there for 130 years. Yeah. Perfect, don't worry.
Yeah, no, to me,
you're fine.
To me, home run. And I wanted to, as I was walking around at the end of the day yesterday, I walked down there to take some pictures. I wanted to take some pictures also. Because this may be an area that some people don't get to, because I was telling people about it, and I know from people I talked to, it was an area of the track that I do it and a lot of other people do. Top of the escalator, the outside escalator, you take a left, there are those betting windows on the back. I've gone there for years. I love those betting, the sand machines back there. There are a couple of
pictures.
There are a couple of
Let's
food
see.
places too, but they
What do you got?
redid the whole roof area there, and it's gorgeous. And the word that came to my mind is it's like a boulevard there now, because it used to be, if folks remember, it was an awning. And so the stanchions to the awning used to go down in the middle.
True. That's a good point.
And now you just look, and as I say, the word that came to mind for me was boulevard. It's just this nice, spacious, open space now. The roof is gorgeous, the woodwork underneath, and the copper on top.
Boardwalk.
Yeah,
Boardwalk.
exactly. It
There we
has
go.
a real, just a really nice feel to it. And Chris Kay yesterday again mentioned that, and he tossed in just the practicality where now this whole area is covered in the off season, in the wintertime and whatnot, which is a bonus as well to keep the facility, a little more weatherproof. Whereas again, this was an awning that would get folded up in the wintertime. But if you don't normally get up to that area, as I say, some people don't. But take the outside escalator up and just take a look. They really did a great job.
There's a lot of things like that that nobody really notices unless it's pointed out. That includes the change. Now it's probably 3-4 years. The hardwood floor. They redid the whole hardwood floor.
Yeah, down in the
and
dining.
nobody would have. You don't necessarily look down when you're walking around. But keeping up a facility that is this old is no easy task, and place looks spectacular. And of course, we had a little weather today to deal with, probably for the next few days. But they do play this game outdoors, and so we'll move with it.
And why don't we take a look at some of the stakes action with the guests? We'll take a look at some of the other stakes, but I thought we'd take a look at the Schuylerville from Friday. Again, we had Mark Cassey scheduled, but he had other things come up, so he couldn't come on. But Catherine the Great in the Schuylerville, she's going to be the #1 horse. I put Nona Madeline on top. She's the sibling to Nona Mella, who came up here and won the stake a few years ago from Monmouth. Nona Madeline, I thought, was a pretty good second, but Catherine the Great, chart margin of 4 1/4. This was a pretty good performance at a decent little 3-to-1 price as the second choice.
Well, the winner was tremendous. Nona Mella had the problem at the break, and once again had to negotiate traffic, and same problem that she encountered down in Monmouth, but overcame it down there. She's a nice horse, but this Catherine the Great, 84 buyer in this win, and this is a serious filly right away, and kind of exciting. And of course, when we get to the Sanford, we're going to see Cassie and Oxley get nipped at the wire by somebody. Otherwise, you would have had a Cassie Oxley sweep of the 2-year-old stakes, and Mark Cassey, can get him ready, his team, but certainly to have this Catherine the Great look as sharp as she did, and she was running hard from the bell, the inside post, a little bit of a concern. Plus, you didn't know, and George Weaver's going to join us next, and George is going to address what I think is a storyline that needs some examination and some stat tracking. That is the Gulfstream factor. The Gulfstream winters now, a few years of regular practice, but you've got more and more major outfits, Pletcher, Weaver, Cassie, that are keeping horses down there after April 30th. And how do you gauge them? Some of them are winning races, and including the Monmouth storyline was very similar too, with Pletcher the last few years breaking maidens there.
Catherine the Great, as recently as June 16th,
Exactly.
was working at Palm Meadows.
Well, George has got a horse coming up, and nobody's more savvy than George Weaver. Look at him over there, the Cheshire Cat. We figured we better get Weaver in here at the beginning of the meet. We're not going to wait till mid-meet so that the $18 winners come as a surprise. We're going to get you all of George's 11 winners. He's already got one, so you got 10 more Weaver winners, because that's what he averages, 11 wins a meet the last 5 years. But to me, it's a very notable nuance. Horses that didn't necessarily come from Churchill, didn't necessarily come from Belmont, but are coming from odd points on the compass. That includes Ellis, Monmouth, and now Gulfstream. So we'll talk to George, because he's gonna try to break a maiden either today, I think today actually, and then I think there's a maiden claimer as well I want to ask about. So we've got a lot to watch. 2 days into the meet and plenty of action already. And of course, we had 2 thrillers yesterday between the Diana photograph and the Sanford photograph.
I had Friday morning, I had Cherie DeVoe on with me.
Tough beat for Cherie.
In her first Saratoga starter,
Yeah, just missed.
the last
missed.
race on Friday. Oof, that was.
Well, that was with the Arnold Zetcher runner and the two.
was a rough
the
beat.
two. You had the siblings run on Friday. You had Chad had the one sibling early, and then Cherie had the older sibling. That ran out of Zardana.
Her first
pretty
Saratoga
funny.
starter. You mentioned Cassie, of course, with the stakes win. I just wanted to quickly mention also coming up on Tuesday, folks, you'll remember that the Prince of Wales at Fort Erie, the second leg of their Triple Crown. Wonder Godot won the Queen's Plate. She is in a field of 6 to try for leg number 2 out at Fort Erie on Tuesday evening at about 7:30. So I just wanted to mention that as well, so folks remember that's up there on Tuesday.
Well, and the nice part of Wonder Godot potentially winning the second leg of the Canadian Triple Crown, she then would bypass the breeders and come here instead to compete in the Alabama. Having won the Queen's Plate at 10 furlongs, they're not going to put her on the grass for the breeders at 1.5 miles, but rather come here, and that sets up what could be just an unbelievable group in the Alabama, and that might not include Midnight Bisou or Monomoy Girl running today, but there's plenty of other terrific 3-year-olds that have emerged here over the last couple of months. So Alabama down the road, but keep an eye on Wonder Godot on Tuesday at Fort Erie.
Absolutely. Anything else? You brought in the notes on Accelerate.
Let's slip that in. Otherwise, yeah, because we might not get to it later. I don't know if the guys have the graphic, but Jay Privman last night, after that Catalina Cruiser, you want to talk about outfits that are sharp. Costa Aronis and John Sadler were seemingly ready to bring Accelerate back for what everybody assumed would be a Pacific Classic prep. Instead, they stretch out Catalina Cruiser, lightly raced, stretching from 6 furlongs, and was unbelievable, crushing the San Diego yesterday. So now the expectation, based on Jay's conversation, is that Accelerate could show up here in the Whitney, which really puts the spurs to the early season handicap classic in these parts, and then Catalina Cruiser would run back in the Pacific Classic. So keep an eye on that. The Whitney, and I'm sure that Andrew Burns and Mike Lakow and Martin Panza are
the division that
ringing
still
the
needs a little
bells.
definition too this year.
Well,
especially over the summer.
Especially with all three of last year's Triple Crown race winners are all struggling with different issues, and so yeah, we're kind of bereft.
But that's what makes
those kinds of horses
Whitney exciting. It can
absolutely
maybe help move somebody forward. Anything else you want to touch before?
No, we
break?
got George Weaver. What are we waiting for?
All right.
We got get your pad and pen ready, and George Weaver is going to join us next. Richard Migliori and Mike Welch to come. Loose on the lead, just getting going.
Stay tuned.
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
Nighttime thoroughbred racing is back at Capital OTB. Now through Labor Day, Capital OTB will be accepting wagers on nighttime thoroughbred racing from across the country, featuring evening racing from Delmar and Woodbine, and now it's even easier to be part of the action. Simply log on to CapitalOTBBet.com on all your digital devices, or use our newly designed mobile app. So even when the sun goes down, thoroughbred racing continues at CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. CapitalOTB.com offers live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, and a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform. And best of all, you get track prices. Going on now, it's Bet 50, Get 50. Simply open a Capital Bets account, bet $50, and get $50 cash back. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Now it's a global series. The best racers from all over the world, the best trainers, the best jockeys.
You can get a free entry into the Breeders' Cup, and everybody wants to run in a Breeders' Cup race.
You get your travel expenses paid for the Breeders' Cup. Automatic berth takes a lot of pressure off.
If we're considering two different races and one was a win and you're in and one was a not, that would be the tiebreaker.
It's probably the best thing that's happened to racing in the last 10 years.
Breeders' Cup Challenge, win, and you're in.
With more than 60 Easy Bet and branch locations throughout the region, you're just a short drive from all the top tracks across the country and around the world. For a complete list of all Easy Bet and branch locations, visit capitalotb.com. Capital OTB. We're closer than you think.
We're back on Loose on the Lead on this first Saturday of the Saratoga meet, and rather than wait until later in the season when half of George's winners will have already run, we wanted to get George Weaver in here early so we could find out where all the hidden gems are, and of course started off the season on the right foot, sent out the wonderful Daddy is a Legend, and wins the Lake George. And George Weaver joins us, always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
George, we were talking off air, and Daddy is a Legend starts the season, a great stake winner at 2 out in California. Nice. And then on Friday, some concerns about how the pace would set up. Take us around.
Number 3 horse.
Well, on paper, there wasn't much pace in the race, and but I talked to Manny a couple times, and I just got to thinking, I was like, you're really the best horse in the race. Don't worry too much about the pace, be conscious of it, and so if there's a faster pace, maybe you won't be as close. If there's a slow pace, you'll be close. But I didn't want to change her style. You really need to wait on her. She has a tendency to hang a little bit if you move too soon. She's got a brilliant turn of foot, but earlier in the year she has hung a couple of times. So it was important to me that he weighed in on her, and he did. He did a good job and saved the best for last.
Jim and Susan Hill, of course, the familiar Silks, and really a nice win to make her a graded stake winner at 3. And you talk about the pace scenarios, and I had this conversation. I brought up Michael McCarthy with his Paved, who was kind of a one-run type, and the inclination to try to adjust to the pace scenario, modest-sized field in this case. What's your habit and practice when it comes to either sticking with, if it is a one-run closer, just living and dying with that style and hoping for the best, or trying to adjust? Because if you stay close, you can sometimes take away that late punch.
From my experience, those horses that run their best races as one-run closers, they never can, if you try to put them closer, they just don't sustain themselves. It's like you're either going to, if you give it early, you're not going to have it late, and it's just the way it is. I mean, and as you go up the class ladder, the really, really good horses you can change styles, and you can use them early and still have something left, but you can't take a horse out of their style. I think it's you pay the price.
You actually, it's funny I bring up McCarthy, because so far, at least the spring and early summer, you've run into 2 monster early season types between Toinette, Neil Drysdale, that came in the Edgewood, and then La Signare as well, that came in the Wonder again, and now she gets a turn. These 3-year-old restricted turf stakes are so productive, and you've got another opportunity obviously later in the meet.
Sure. What is the Lake Placid, I think, is the next stop. We'll take a look at that, and I'm probably going to have to nominate it for the Del Mar Oaks and consider that as well, even though I love Saratoga. Maybe we'll have a little trip out to Del Mar if she's doing well. We'll see how that goes.
And even late season, the Queen Elizabeth, you've got such a variety.
Spots. They've got some good spots for her in the fall.
Well, Daddy is a Legend, the Scat Daddy out of the Benchmark Mare, and actually bred by H&R No Theft down in Pennsylvania. So she's got Pennsylvania opportunities too.
I've been watching those out, but she kind of bypassed that.
those opportunities.
Yeah, she jumped a rung up on the ladder.
Well, you're actually, on that note, George is obviously watching a bunch of condition books, because in the last 2 weeks, Belmont, Monmouth, Parks, Laurel, Delaware, and Gulfstream.
Well, that's part of the benefit of being on the East Coast. You know, I'm New York based, and I want to run everything we can in New York, but you also have to try to get the horses to produce. And if you have a good spot at one of those tracks, there's several options in the Mid-Atlantic that, you know, if you don't have the right race in New York, you've got options.
I want to jump in with a nuts and bolts question, and this is the perfect, you're kind of talking the background of the game, because you have a couple in today, and I was looking, and one has worked over here at the main track, one was over at Oklahoma. Obviously, there was some turf work, so you got to be across the street. But as a trainer, how do you decide when to send them to the main track as opposed to when you work them out across the street at the Oklahoma?
Most of the young horses, I like to get some work on the main track, even if they're going to run on the grass. It's just the whole idea of coming over here and breaking out of the gate, especially gate works. I like them to have the gate work over here if you can. And some horses are just better on one surface or the other, or they do better, and you feel more comfortable keeping them in one spot or the other. But I like the young horses to come over there as long as they're handling the surface and environment and such.
George, on this topic as well, I bring up the racetrack options, and mentioned it with Seth about coming up, you know, the way, in fact, Catherine the Great for Cassie, for a couple of starts down at Gulfstream, stayed after the end of the winter meet. You've got horses down there as well, and are also in the process of bringing them up here. And I'm curious about leaving a string down there and basically adjusting to what has been kind of a shift in the landscape.
Well, Gulfstream has, you know, their program's getting better and better in the summer. It just so happens that it fits my schedule. My wife, Cindy, who's a huge part of the barn and a huge part of our success, you know, she has to go down there for my son's school, you know, in August, but she, on the flip side of that, she stays down there through the, you know, into the first week of June. So we keep some horses there and run them down there and hopefully set them up for some good things up here. We're not down there full time yet, but you know, it's something that might happen in the future. But it is a good place to leg horses up. The place we train at Palm Beach Downs is, I've just had a lot of luck bringing horses out of there up north and having good years with them.
How's the alligator down there in the lake? The Palm Beach Downs alligator.
She's doing fine. She's growing.
It's the craziest thing. And then you got barn help that's out there feeding the thing, and they're out of their minds. I mean, how?
It's been a peaceful relationship. Nobody's gotten hurt.
Nobody's gotten hurt.
Yeah. I think of a while ago before we were there, somebody's dog might have lost a leg or something, but.
I love it.
That's why they're feeding. Placate the thing.
George, I can't help whenever we get together with you to talk about what a wonderful group of owners that you've got. And mention the Hills. Then there's Matt Shearer. There's the one and only R.A. Randy Hill. West Point is with you. And you've got such a loyal group and such a consistent number of starters. I mentioned that you've been averaging 11 wins up here every single summer. Talk about, and I always ask you this, talk about the planning, because I can tell everybody from the last 3 years, 12 maiden special weight wins, 5 maiden claiming wins, 6 straight claiming wins, 9 allowance or starter allowance or conditional allowance wins, and 1 stake win. Now 2 stake wins, actually. And that's obviously an eclectic lineup. Talk about the planning to be able to be in this position to run, you know, about 50 horses and win 10, 11 races a meet.
I think the natural flow of our year just ends up, we just have a lot of horses ready to run here. And I think usually I'll start heating up at the end of Belmont. You know, horses start running and start to sort out where they belong and where they fit. And I mean, we have done well here every year, and but it's, you know, you have to get luck and you have to have, it's nice to have live maidens. You know, those always help you win races for sure.
The opportunity to make a decision too about, because of this eclectic set of successes, you're obviously picking the right spots, George, and that involves discussions with, you know, frank discussions with owners that trust you. And I think that obviously has got to play into it, because there's horses that you're dropping from maiden special into maiden claiming company, and you're getting your wins. If somebody takes you, they take you. And obviously that can be sometimes a difficult conversation with owners.
It can be. Most of the people I work for are very good about it. I mean, that's part of my job as a trainer is evaluating how good your horse is and where they are in their career. And you know, everybody wants to win. So even though it might be disappointing that you need to drop in class to win, it's still I have found that the thing that makes people the happiest is when you do win. So we try to put them where they got a shot.
Exactly right, and that. You know, that says it all.
Let me toss out a couple of runners that when I looked up on Equibase when we knew you were going to be on, a couple of experienced runners that I'm curious if they'll show up here at Saratoga. One of those four, West Point. You're wearing their gear today.
Yeah, nice
West
shirt,
Point,
yeah.
Nice second last time in the Saginaw with Why Not? Is he looking for a stake up here?
I guess we'll take a look at the Evan Shipman. He's come back really well this year. We gave him a little break. You know, he ran a poor race up here last year, and he just felt like he needed some time. He got a break, and he's come back as good as ever. You know, that was a big race he ran the other day. Back on short rest, big rugged horse. I thought he ran great doing it, and we're going to bring him up here and find a good spot for him. Maybe the Evan Shipman, maybe a one other than, just depending how he's doing and how it falls.
Another horse, interesting, Colonel Tom, 2 for 3 in the career. The last win was right at the end of last month down at Belmont, and I saw you had a workout just a few days ago, a couple days ago.
Yesterday.
Downstate, right?
In Belmont,
So
yeah.
is he going to head up and maybe find a spot up here?
He will be very soon, yeah. I ran him back on short rest in there. I was kind of mad at him. His first race off the layoff, he kind of ran green, and you know, he just didn't go out there. And so we run him back in 2 weeks, and I told Dylan to put him on leave, which he did a good job of doing, and he got him home. So.
You talk about that on short rest. You've mentioned it a couple times now. I'll just ask you because it got me thinking. As a handicapper, now these weren't that short of a rest, but do you ever come back in a week or less? Because as a handicapper, I always say, you know, I like that because I think it shows confidence. I think it shows the trainer thought, hey, you know, he didn't give it all last time. To me, a short rest like that of 7 days or 10 days maybe, as a handicapper, I look at it as a confident move.
I don't think it's probably frowned upon and not done as much as it could be done. I think that there are certain horses that can do it. For example, Why Not is a big, rugged colt. You know, he's got good size, bone, weight. You know, he could handle it. I did it with Mabry's Boy on several occasions back in the day. I ran him at Belmont on June 7th, and he wheeled back on June 10th at Delaware and won with Ramon as easy as could be. So I think it's something they could do. But again, it falls back. It has to be the right spot. You can run it if you run them back in a week and then you're in the wrong spot. It doesn't matter. So it's trying to have that happen. For example, with Why Not, we were looking at the Saginaw. We had entered it. I think they canceled it because of the heat or something. Or something came up, and then we were like, well, we're just going to run in the one other than. And then they ran the one other than, and then all of a sudden the Saginaw got brought back so that it gave us.
Sure.
And we're like, well, let's give it a try. But that option wasn't there. Yeah. If that option wasn't there, then you're not going to do it. So it's a matter of having the race actually there to do it, and you can be successful doing it.
Another stake opportunity, I'm going to guess way early, we're going to see in the Hall of Fame?
I'm not going to run him in the Hall of Fame.
No?
He's a New York bred one other than, and you know.
Take the
you mentioned the 11-win bar.
Yeah.
I need to take the low road.
Nothing wrong with that, and of course, and
the low-hanging fruit.
Well, and it's very important. And Randy Hill gets horses to bet on. That's vital.
Yeah, we've got doubles and pick threes we need to hook up. So,
on that topic, in fact, Majestic Dunhill that won the Frenchman down at Monmouth.
Yeah, that horse is on fire.
What are you doing?
He ran big over there. I mean, he's just not figuring out what he is. He's always been a little bit of a clown, and just not totally focused. But he's come back great this year, and I can't wait to the quick call.
Quick call here, obviously.
It's going to be tougher than down there, but I think he can do it.
Nice, and it's funny. There's a perfect example. One of the other hallmarks of your success here. A certain percentage are horses that had won here the previous year, and either it's a maiden breaker or whatever it might be, and you bring them back here, and that knowing that whether it's a turf opportunity or main track, you've done that very consistently. Come back with winners from the previous year.
Well, Majestic Dunhill ran a huge race here to break his maiden.
Yeah.
It took us a while to figure out that he didn't want to be rushed off his feet, but now that he's kind of figured out how to run, we're looking forward to seeing him up here again.
couple of others, and of course today with the wet track, we're still waiting. We may have a decision. Have we heard yet? They said 10 o'clock. Did you get a text?
I didn't get it yet.
All right. They're waiting, and it seems like for now the weather is holding, but they are still on the turf as of at least 10 a.m. and still on the turf, so it looks like we're good. Ghostly Beauty, first-time starter, and who's Stetson Racing?
A guy from California. Chris Conley. They bought this filly at the 2-year-old sale, and he wanted to have a couple horses on the East Coast, so they picked her to send to me along with another one. And she's been doing well.
Interesting breeding too. I mean, she is bred top and bottom for grass. If this race had come off, would you get a start under her belt, or would you wait?
You know, I haven't completely made a decision. My gut told me I did not want to run her, and but if it scratches down to a ridiculous short field or something, and we feel like we can get a check and get some experience, we might leave her in there.
It's a little hard because Noble Mission, first crop, and so you don't have any kind of set understanding. So other than breeding feel, how much of it is confirmation and hoof and the way in which you watch them move to make those kinds of decisions?
Well, you can kind of tell, when you watch them breeze on the dirt as compared to the turf. Now, this filly, I've always just basically assumed that she was okay on the turf. She's got a big old pancake foot on her, and she's breezed so well on the turf. We've been very happy with her. But I will say, the other day out of the gate, she worked okay out of the gate on the dirt the other day.
Interesting.
So I don't think she would. If I did leave her in there, I don't think it would not surprise me if she won.
And then here's that theme that we talked about: Gulfstream up to Saratoga, and French Empire for the Hills, a Ramona Bass bred filly, one start under her belt, which came going a mile on the grass at Gulfstream, and she ran
against
evenly.
The boys.
Look at that, against the boys. Look at
It's a strange story. We had her at Keeneland there, and she just went through a phase mentally where she wasn't doing well. She wasn't good, and I had to send her down to Florida, which is not. She went from Keeneland back south.
Wow.
So that I wanted my wife to get on her. Cindy got on her and got her sorted out, and we were down there, and I wanted to get a race for her so badly. I said, I'll just run. That was my only option. They didn't use the maiden race for fillies and mares on the dirt or the one on the turf, and they used that. So it was important to me to get a race in her before we came up north.
And she feels like a potentially versatile type. She's by Street Sense out of an Empire Maker mare, so there's shades of turf all over the pedigree.
I looked up. The mare had some success on the turf as well. I'm running today on the dirt because I think she can handle it, and we're gonna, she's lightly raced, so we're gonna learn something about her. So hopefully she can. If not, we can always go back to the turf.
And then going to tomorrow, Shanghai Dreams, Randy Hill and Matt Gatsis together, and of course. That's a three-headed monster down in the boxes, three of you guys. This is a dropper from Maiden Special Weight Company State Breds into State 40, and so this is kind of a productive, this is in the Weaver wheelhouse.
Well, we got to start down there at Belmont, and it was a good start, but we've been having some trouble keeping her where we want her, and this is a good spot for her.
Play Unified coming up on Wednesday in the 6th. Second level allowance, and you're doing something else that handicappers should be aware. You just cleared condition with this one. This is happens to be a Louisiana bred that you had sent to Brett Calhoun over the winter, I guess. How did that happen with Bonaventura?
Well, she was Louisiana bred, and we got to a point last year that we thought that she should go over there, at least try some of those stakes, or she would have more opportunities. She actually broke this condition last year at Saratoga.
Oh, there it is.
Yep. Off the turf, and then at that point, she's kind of run through her conditions, and but she's been a great filly. She's knocked out her purse money, and that was quite a nice race at Belmont last month, and we'll come back in the same spot.
Exactly, running back in the same spot. If somebody wants to reach in for 62.5, they're welcome to. She's an exchange rate 5-year-old mare out of a Carson City mare. It's interesting. I mean, there's a sprint pedigree back and forth. Monet, Mo Problems, the Uncle Mo Gelding, still looking for the diploma. This is in the nightcap on Wednesday.
Yeah, I hope he's found the right spot. He's run some good numbers and run some good races, but he's starting to become a little bit of a professional maiden. So hopefully he'll not be one after Wednesday's over.
Got to ask you about a couple of 2-year-olds. Give us some advance warning.
Well, both the ones we ran yesterday will come back and have a good chance to win. Even the one I ran in the 6th race, we liked that colt. He was a little fractious in the gate and got caught out very wide, but he looked good this morning. He'll come back and win. See what else we got. The filly today is good. That's probably it for now.
You hold out?
He is. He is. I'll tell you. I'll get you on the radio tomorrow. George Weaver, always tremendous. And like Seth, you have something in common with Seth. Still not on Twitter.
That's right. I've been. It's been hard, but I refused.
See, I say the same thing.
Hard. But that's him. He's George is George is still, he's like still waters. It's not his thing. As opposed to you, tweeting Seth Merrow. 2 days into the meet, now 3, I'm still not on.
Dark day. I'm glad.
Oh yeah,
we'll
you count on that,
the radio
folks.
on Wednesday.
George, always tremendous.
Steve, thank you, Seth.
George Weaver, everybody, always fabulous. And mark them down. There'll be another 10 wins before Labor Day.
Please.
Back after this, Rich Migliori.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Oh, geez, it's loose on the lead. It's loose on the lead. It was only a matter of time.
It was only a matter of time.
Loose on the lead.
Just like Twitter.
Steve Vick. And joining us now, Rich Migliori. Good morning, Rich.
Good morning. It's good to be here. I was going to try to pull a joke on you guys, like so when the red light went on, like Cindy Brady and the Brady Bunch just freeze, but...
No, there's no freezing you out.
No, actually, slowing me down might be the problem. Huh?
Exactly.
I'm loose on the lead.
That's why we call it this. It's perfect. Perfect.
Thought we'd take a look at the 2 stakes from yesterday, get some of your thoughts on those, because, of course, 2-year-olds always a big part of Saratoga. And yesterday, the Sanford, named after the farm in Old Berg. The Sanford family had the Sanford Stud Farm over in Amsterdam for years and years, a big part of Saratoga. And they continue with their name on the early 2-year-old stake. Yesterday, it was Sambaye for Todd Pletcher, came in off a nice second place finish in the Tremont. I like Banasolo, the number 7 horse, who was kind of sitting there in a good spot the whole way around, and I thought might make a move here up the rail. That one kind of faded a little bit late to run fourth, but Sambaye gets it done for Todd Pletcher and Starlight Racing. So pretty nice and a gutsy win here to get up by a neck over Strike Silver.
Yeah, this just seems like a colt that's kind of figuring it out. He was a little bit green in his first 2 starts. He actually put himself more in the game this time. And I don't know about you guys, but it felt to me like on the main track yesterday that maybe he didn't want to be on the fence. It seemed like horses either were trying to rally inside, bogged down a little bit, or horses that made the lead and kind of drifted towards the fence, kind of bogged down a little bit late. But I thought this was a real nice effort by a horse that I think still got a lot of forward movement in him.
We showed it earlier. What did you think of Catherine the Great on the girls' side on Friday?
Oh, she was sensational. You know, and I wasn't a believer because I just, the slap.
Who knew?
How do you make? What do you make of that? And she might have won in the slap and didn't even really care for it the way she won on the fast track.
Well, and not that you're going to compare the track from the 2 days, but I mean the girls way faster than the boys.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the main track's been playing fast, but it just seemed like that to me. Maybe I'm making more of it than it is. If I was riding, I think I would have wanted to have been out in the 3 or 4 path.
Well, Nitrous was well off, right?
Yeah, he was off the fence. He wasn't, at least a path or 2 off him, but he was super impressive as well.
Although, interestingly, between Strike Silver and Nitrous, who had run 1-2, and Nitrous, everybody was kind of waiting for the Nitrous race as a referendum on Strike Silver, and Strike Silver certainly acquitted himself famously, but the race came back kind of slow, and so did the Nitrous race in terms of FIG anyway. 975 buyer for Nitrous in the win.
Especially with 2-year-olds, I always take the figures with a grain of salt. They're young horses. They're going to constantly change. I think they've kind of tipped their hand that they're talented. Nitrous was probably better than Strike Silver in their first start. I mean, he was a little bit unlucky to lose, I thought.
Well, and since we're talking about both 2-year-old races, that the Nona Madeline storyline, because now you wonder if she's establishing herself as a problem gal that is going to make work for herself after the adventure in Monmouth, and then she does it again. Not that necessarily she was beating Catherine the Great, but she again had to go against the track and make up ground that she lost off the break.
And the thing is, you think about Todd Pletcher's babies, how well schooled they are.
Usually,
Bob Duncan works with them, down in Florida. I mean, that's a huge edge to have somebody like Bob Duncan schooling your young horses.
Absolutely.
So you make a great point, because if they haven't gotten her to do it properly by now, maybe she's just never going to.
It's a little surprising, so we'll keep an eye, because she'll certainly, you'd think she would come back. I don't know if he'd wait for the spin away, or if he'd
probably wait for the spin away. Knowing Todd, the way Todd approaches things, but.
Well, of course, yesterday we should also mention that Sambaye, the success of Starlight, they're having a pretty magical year, and while Justify was marching through the Triple Crown, Sambaye was kind of gaining traction down in Florida. Another one of these storylines that the Gulfstream Express at this point.
Well, it's given guys an opportunity to get 2-year-olds started and get races into them. I mean, this is his 3rd start. In this day and age, it's unusual for a 2-year-old to have 3 starts by this time. Like, years ago, they might break their maiden run an allowance race before they even hit a stake. That doesn't happen anymore. So it's a little bit of a throwback, and I kind of like to see it.
Let's take a look at the Diana and get some thoughts there, because first grade 1 of the meet, also run yesterday, 1.8 miles on the grass, and wanted to show this because if the stakes the rest of the meet live up to this one. Nice ding dong battle. I needed Sister Charlie for a pick 4. I had singled her, but in pick 3s I used Ultra Brat, and at 15-1 I thought, the pick 3s might be better. So I was I didn't know what to do for this photo. But Sister Charlie will be the number 1 horse, Ultra Brat the number 5 horse, a Raving Beauty, the other Chad horse is the 6 horse, and it was a nice stretch run. Johnny Velasquez is just riding really well this year.
He's remarkable. He's just amazing to be able to maintain that high level of riding. And the enthusiasm that he keeps. So this was a terrific finish. You got to feel a little bit for Ultra Brat and Grand Motion, but Sister Charlie was very good. The best horse was a Raving Beauty. I mean, she just had a very, very tough trip. Now, a lot of people go, well, that was a terrible ride. It was a bad ride. I think this goes under the heading of this was an unlucky ride. This is how you're going to win turf races, by saving ground, getting covered up. Arabian Beauty is a horse that wants to be a little bit keen. To get her to go mile and eighth, you need cover. So I think this is just a good illustration to distinguish between an unlucky ride and a bad ride.
Yeah.
This was unlucky.
Yeah, but it was, again, a nice win, and you can see it here. The crowd. This is one where the crowd was oohing and eyeing with every replay. Just gets up. Chart margin is a nose, 3.75 of a length back to the third place finisher. So as I say, if the rest of the stakes live up to this, it'll be a pretty good meet. We were talking boys and girls a couple of minutes ago on the 2-year-old scene. On the 3-year-old scene, the girls face off this afternoon, that 3-year-old filly division. I think over the past few weeks has become more interesting. Monomoy Girl, to me, had the eclipse sewn up after the Acorn, and then with Wonder Gadot winning the Queen's Plate, Red Ruby, and Midnight Bishu, I think that division is interesting. But I wanted to talk about the boys as well. Justify goes to the sideline now.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me? That division, I thought the Derby was a strong addition of the Derby and indicated it was a strong 3-year-old crop. It hasn't played out that way. I think it's now Justify, and everybody else is looking to kind of make their name as the second or third position in that division. Nobody's really stepped out.
You know, it's interesting, though. I think we all kind of get jumping to conclusions too quickly about how good or bad a crop is. And usually, honestly, until a year or two later when you have a chance to look at it, that's when you see more. I mean, Good Magic is still a seriously good horse. I mean, he took his best shot in the Derby, was second best. He didn't get the trip he wants in the Preakness, and he still wasn't badly beaten, and he kind of got shuffled down to, by that time of the day, because I was walking back and forth at Pimlico across the track, the first 3 paths towards the rail were the deepest part of the track. He kind of got pushed down in there when, you know, he couldn't keep up with Justify. So I think he's a horse that's got a real chance to step forward again and kind of make his mark. And obviously, Justify is your 3-year-old champion if he never runs again, right? So, but there's still a lot of big races. The Travers, in some ways, gets more interesting because I think you're going to get a huge field. And, you know, we talk about all the time how these horses change, you know, and they come to hand at different times. We may have not seen a horse that's really hit their full potential yet.
What are your thoughts about this afternoon with the showdown between Monomoy Girl and Midnight Bishu?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Midnight Bishu is just such a good filly, and she's taken such a big step forward. I think you can put a line in her Kentucky Oaks. I just don't think she didn't break. She kind of got shuffled out of the race. Monomoy Girl, to me, though, has a tactical advantage. I just think she possesses more natural speed, and I don't see anybody in there that can entertain her early unless it's Midnight Bishu. So then is she put in a position where she's having to play the other filly's game? I think it's a great race, though. There's no give me. And then if they ever get in a cutthroat duel, you know, maybe it's something crazy happens. You know, if I'm riding the race and I'm not on one of those two, I'm riding to be third and then hope that they make mistakes.
Well, and that's actually a good jockey question and topic, because we've seen that any number of times. And think back to, what was it? It was Rachel Alexandra and was it Life is Sweet, or I always forget this. Life is Sweet, or Life at 10.
Life at 10. Yeah.
And basically, Calvin Burrell, they were acting like they were the only 2 horses in the race.
Right.
And left it open for Shug. And that, you know, this field of 5, and this is a quality field. I mean, you've got 2 Grade 1 placed fillies and a graded stake winner among the other 3. And so, you know, for those that think, oh, it's a small field, what are you talking about? And you go back in any, you go back to any stake of this ilk. It doesn't have to be at Saratoga. It could be, you know, the Oaks, of course, was at Belmont. And there's fields like this throughout history. This is a very typical elite Grade 1 kind of field. Getting 5 horses for a field like a group like this is not unusual. But when you're in that position, what are you watching for to pounce? And how often is it that you're riding to get, let's say in this case, Grade 1 type, particularly for a filly or mare? It's a huge opportunity.
Well, like the best way I can describe it is when I went to ride Friends Lake in the Florida Derby. When I handicapped the race, I thought, gosh, you know, I'm probably 3rd best in here. I got to ride him smart to be 3rd. You know, it's $1 million race. It's a Grade 1. So I broke, saved ground, saved horse, was happy with my position. And then as I'm watching him go up the backstretch and I see how things are developing, one horse is going after, I guess it was Tappet was in there, and he kind of made an early run, and I can't remember all the horses' names, but they all were taking early shots, and as they're doing that, I'm like, this is working out great, I'm going to get a piece of it, turn it for home, like, great, I'm going to be third, 8th ball, I'm going to be second, 16th ball, I'm going to be really mad if I don't get up and win. So you just got to take your time, save your horse, be concerned with just having something to finish with, and then if they're passing out, you get lucky and get the big check. And I mean, to me, the horse that maybe is probably the most likely beneficiary of a setup like that is Eskimo Kisses. Yeah. And she's also handled wet tracks, so you got to kind of upgrade her for that, for sure. Can you get time for a quick Life at 10 story?
Yeah.
I won a stake on Life at 10 at Aqueduct. In the interim, I had fallen on my head when I rode your horse. What was his name?
Lloyd Dobler.
Lloyd Dobler. So I didn't know I had broken my neck again. I was in pain, but I'm go ahead and trying to ride, and I'm going to ride Life at 10 in the 60 sales the following Saturday.
In Chicago. In
Chicago. And I love her, and the way she won the stake, the affection, I think it was. So I go to the doctor, and he tells me, look, you broke your neck again. You got 6 broken vertebrae in your neck, and you got 2 broken in your back. He goes, we got to have to operate. And I said, well, okay, doc, I've been riding like this. I'm going to go to Chicago and ride Life at 10 and then come back and do the surgery. He said, you're not leaving here today. They put a neck collar on me and checked me in the hospital. And she won the 60 sales. So I could have rode her. She would have went to the lead.
Rich, we appreciate the visit. We got our man Mike Welch out in the green room, as it were, as it is actually green, but
we got to give Rich one opportunity here before we go. And on Wednesday, they drew yesterday the Honorable Miss coming up, Dancing Renee.
Dancing Renee. Good filly. She was Sandy Bacon. He owned Say Florida Sandy.
Sure. Who just passed away, by the way.
Yeah, Say Florida Sandy was at the time the richest New York bred until he's passed my Mind Your Biscuits. She was a good mare though. She ran like 8-4 that day up here. She was very, very good. She won a bunch of open stakes. Always fun to ride for Sandy too. Quite a character.
You came along obviously well after Manny Akaiza, but
I actually got to ride with Manny a little bit.
Did you really?
In the early '80s, he made a brief
That's
comeback.
That's right, for 82, 83.
Yeah, and I remember I was post 1 in a maiden race. He was post 2, and you know I love racing, reading about it, history. And I'm going, this is great because I know he's going to shut me off leaving here. You know, he was notorious for that. He didn't shut me off. I was disappointed.
I can remember he was for a while. He was across the street.
Yeah, he drove harness horses too.
Yeah,
maybe that's how I can make a comeback.
They go fast too. You know, they go like a pretty good way.
The doctor said I can ride. I just can't fall.
Exactly. Rich, again, appreciate the visit. We'll check in during the meet as well. But
appreciate it, guys.
Good luck going forward. We'll take a break. Again, Mike Welch, Daily Racing Forum. We'll get some clocker thoughts here on a Sunday morning. Stay tuned. Loose on the Lead continues.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
We're back on Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning where the sun is trying to peek through, but maybe it wasn't the sun, maybe it's Mike Welch, whose sunny disposition always lifts everybody's spirits. Good morning.
Thanks for the compliment.
Oh, look at you in your Teppan hat.
Oh, this is a good time to pull up the picture you sent.
Oh, this is. Have you seen this yet?
Speaking of sunny disposition.
No. Oh, wait till you see this. This is unbelievable.
If the guys can pull it. You had pictures.
I got the biggest smile. I got the biggest smile out of him yesterday in the clubhouse with Mig. In fact, Mig, we somehow should have melded. Look at that.
Very good. Very good.
Who's that in the middle? That willowy blonde.
Your lovely wife.
The reason for the smile.
Little dirty Tina, and yeah, we had. As I said, really, it's off to a great start, Mike. And of course, part of a great start is tied to having a couple of clues about horses early on. It's nice to get established at this meet. And one of the things about the Clocker Report, DRF Clocker Report, still plenty of time to go ahead and subscribe for the whole meet. And what I've done is I've pulled up 4 different blurbs, and one of the assets is having the kind of the back reports, and there was a couple of things from Keeneland and a couple of things from go back to Churchill, and there's so many little nuances to glean from the comments. And let's see, this is this is the nitrous race. There we go. So actually, there's a couple of things on here. Start with the nitrous race, where you had the Al Gold firster, that was the sibling to Fixed Income Larry, nitrous and binary, and to mix and match, and you ended up with a couple of with at least one nice price in with nitrous.
Right. I mean, nitrous seemed obvious on paper, and it worked good subsequent to his race in Kentucky, but. The one horse of Jeremiah's, I'd seen him one time out of the gate and was impressed. I thought it was a promising work, and I was a little, the one hole for first-time start is always a little bit iffy, so I wasn't sure how that was going to work out, but it turned out he worked out a perfect trip, and looked like for a minute he was going to give Nitrous all he could handle, but Nitrous is a nice horse, and the experience, too. You can't downplay how much the experience means in these baby races. We saw it in the stake yesterday that Todd saw somebody with two races under his belt. Obviously, made a difference in the end. I think over the horse that had just the one previous start. So so far so good. Everything's worked out well. Ricky's horse Binary, kind of an odd race for him. Looked like on the turn he was going to pack it in. Maybe wasn't happy getting the dirt in his face as he was, and then ducked back inside and came on again. Almost got third. So. He's a horse to keep an eye on, too.
If you don't mind putting the graphic back up, guys, and Dominant Strategy, the other quote-unquote Chad Brown, and I thought that this is another comment that when you tell people all the time when we are on the radio together, and you remind people it's not just the grade, it's not the B-, the B+, the B, the A-. It's what's written, and the more you read a certain clocker's notations, the more you get a sense of the, not a tout, but of a little bit of a lean. And you talking about the quality of the opponent in the morning, that says a lot. And at 9-2, Dominant Strategy ended up being a very nice winner, and you got to feel that, maybe going into the race from that comment.
Yeah, I was borderline giving him a B+, and I settled on the B. I got a little conservative there. But, I just like the way he held his own with an older, more experienced, talented horse. So, again, I always caution people, read the comments, don't always go by the grade. Sometimes the grades are skewed a little bit by the time. They're not always as fast, but sometimes I will make a comment better than the final time might look.
Right.
Something like that. So, it's always important. You got to read.
And I did a seminar Tuesday night down at the Times Union in Albany, and we were talking just, handicapping, some thoughts like that. And I said, that's one of the things I pointed out. You can look in the racing form, you can see those bullets and whatnot, but when you pick up something like that, the Clockers Report, get just what you said, horses that work in company, which I think is very important. Particularly you're talking a 2-year-old going against an older horse. There's nowhere where you see that on the past performance page. You have to pick up something like the Clockers Report. But that, to me, is very telling when they go against some competition and do well.
Yeah, you know, they're talking about down the road putting chips in and the times will be automatically done and they won't need clockers anymore. Well, that's not true. You might not need clockers to time the works, but you still need clockers there to report on the works, because what happens during the work is just as important, if not more important, than the final time. So you might be able to get the final times electronically, but you still need guys there eyeballing the works and reporting on them from that kind of a perspective. And that's what we try to do as best we can. And it doesn't always work out. You know, horses will work well and not run well, and horses. Talked to Todd yesterday after Sombaye ran and won. We gave him a couple of B-minuses, and I think even in one of the work reports I explained that he seems to save his best for the afternoon. And one of the reporters asked Todd after the race, because he did have a bullet in his last work, he said, did that last work tip you off that he was going to run a big race today? And Todd's answer was a succinct no. And then he explained, he said he's just not a workhorse that'll wow you, and he does his best in the afternoon. And he said, we're fine with that. Once we realize that that's the case, you know, you don't get concerned if a horse in the morning coming into a big race like that isn't all you think he might be or she might be. So I thought it was funny on his part that he said that. It was just an absolute no, and then with an explanation, and that's kind of the way we had it. He certainly wasn't the horse working the best going into the race yesterday, but once you know that that's the case with horses like that, then the works are almost immaterial, at least in that situation.
Well, and to stay in Todd's barn for a minute, we had the whole Audible all spring long, winter into spring. We had the whole case with Audible, who, you know, we were leaning on so many reports and you know, the horses that were coming into the big races, in this case the Florida Derby, and here's a horse that just isn't looking, you know, all that interested in the mornings, but it doesn't necessarily translate. But you only use these as an augmentation and like the ability to kind of split hairs and make final decisions. The last comment that was on that page, bad student from the opener. Was that yesterday or first day?
It's already
that
confused.
Was,
I'm already on the Wednesday.
Exactly. This was Friday. Bad student, the Diodoro barn, and that comment got me to use him at least as a C in the pick 5. And the fact that you said, you know, had finished 6th against Tougher at Parks, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna use him as the C in here, and because in my first pass I really, you know, he was kind of an X for me. But that's where you can go to town. And of course, we talked about your information going in this year to the Phipps with Abel Tasman, where you made it clear she was just not sharp and that there was something amiss. And that ended up being invaluable information.
And that was Toby Terrell's reports out in California, and that's one good thing. We do have guys spread out around the country now. We do have a regular person in California. We do have a guy reporting for us in Kentucky, not all year, but part of the time. And that's one reason why I tried to get down to Belmont for the last 10 days prior to, not for the last 10 days, but for about 10 days prior to coming here a week before the meet to try to catch some of the stuff going on down there, because I know that was very relevant. I had Donald up here covering here, so we had both those bases covered for a while too, and we've got both tracks covered here. There's no way you could cover this place with just one person. There's just too much going on. We also have Dave Grenning in the mix too, who's become invaluable as a third person involved both here and down at Belmont too. He's got some stuff. He stayed behind after I left and got a few extra works that I wouldn't have seen that have already been relevant for the start of this meet.
How long, be honest, how long did it take for you to get confident in Grenning's handling of the stopwatch?
Dave picked it up pretty quick, and he's got a good eye. He's been around a long time, so Dave does a great job, and he's out here in the morning every day with the rest of us at 5:30. He doesn't need to be, but he's there one place or another. This morning, you know, everything looked iffy, like nobody was going to work anywhere because of the weather and the fact that about 1,000 horses seemed to work yesterday. I went over to the main track, even though it was sealed and not likely to be used much, and I had 20 works, and then Dave called me, and he was on the training track, and he had 40 over there along with Donald. So, you know, that's 60 horses we saw work where on a day where you might not have thought anything was going to go.
Well, and, you know, again, to reiterate about having people stationed around the country, Lyrical Lady, the Asmussen winner on Friday. That you had comments from Keeneland, and then you had a comment from New York as well.
That was a back work Donald had when he was at Keeneland.
Yep.
After that meet had closed, he hung around there for a while, and he wasn't out every morning, but he was out the right morning to pick that filly up, and then saw her again here. So the combination of those two, it was a pretty positive report going into a very tough race, and she actually paid it.
$15.80.
Pretty generous
Paid
price.
$15.80.
A lot more
It was
than
the highlight of the day for me.
A lot more than I thought she would, and it was a
Yeah.
good hookup if you like dominant strategy the race before. Pretty good double there. I helped along when Todd's horse didn't break, who got bet as the favorite in that race, but we only had her as so-so. She got touted around pretty good, and maybe she would have been, a major factor had she broken. But from the rail again, didn't come away well, and she was eliminated right from the start.
That was Blahnik, was the part of the entry, and the one on the outside. And it seemed, and here again, the two members of that entry going back to Friday in the 5th race, they had been working together. Always something. Always, I'm going to forget the name of the entry mate. But it seemed to me that the entry mate had been beating Blahnik.
That's what it seems from the report. I hadn't seen those works. Those are all Donald's over there, and this is his first year up here, and he's done 2 days. He's already done a great job. I miss Mike Vesci. I wish Mike was around to help us too, and hopefully he'll be back in the fold with us at some point down the road. But Donald's done a great job. He was at Keeneland for the Keeneland meet. Now he's here now, and he was with us at Florida at Palmetto. So we've got good coverage. We've got good people, and hopefully it'll work out for the entire meet. Like I said, doesn't always work out on a race-to-race or sometimes even a day-to-day basis, but in the long run, I think you get enough good info and enough even price horses that it pays for itself.
Hey, let me ask you, because Seth asked the question earlier of George Weaver about horses working on the Oklahoma versus coming across the street. And for you, strictly as a player, any nuance to you to understanding the ones that basically worked across the street but are now coming over to run on the main? How do you handle it?
You could overanalyze sometimes too much. I mean, obviously, if a horse works well on the track that he's racing on, he'd probably have a little more confidence that he'd perform well over the track he's racing on. And I've had a couple of trainers that had been down at Belmont come up here with horses that had worked well and did not perform as well here, thinking maybe I should have brought him up early and given him a race over the track. We had the Ralph Nix filly the other day that had worked sensational down there, and off the top of my head now I don't remember her name. And she didn't run quite as that well in the race. He was disappointed, but he thought maybe that was part of it. This track, they put a little clay in it. It's a different mixture than what's down there at Belmont, and perhaps that was, perhaps that wasn't the reason. But and the same thing, you come over from the training track, it's a little deeper, it's a little different surface. Maybe they don't run as well over here. But that's a case-by-case individual nature, and I think if you start to analyze it too much and start overthinking, you can get yourself in trouble.
I'm going to ask one more technical question, and that is something that we know from Florida in particular when it comes to palmettos and turf works, and the dogs being up at some places, and what the times represent. Here you do have extensive turf works that go deep into the morning. What can we discern in terms of times on the Oklahoma turf works and what they're telling us?
Well, the dogs are up all the time at Oklahoma. The only horses allowed to work inside the dogs, and it makes a big difference when you see the times.
Sure.
Are the stakes horses, and of course the stakes horses are faster than the majority of the horses that are working the rest of the morning outside the dogs, but they're also right down on the rail. So there's a big difference in the times there, and you really have to make note in your form or in our comments. But we don't always say the dog around the dogs. It's just generally they're around the dogs unless they're stakes horses.
And let's explain. The dogs are cones, are traffic cones that are stationed typically about 18 feet, give or take.
Sometimes way more than that.
Yeah, depends.
But sometimes the times are the distances are calibrated. At Belmont Park, the dogs are way out, but the distances are calibrated for where they break off, and their exact distances, even though they're going 8 miles wide. But they're not over here at Oklahoma. They break off at the 5/8 pole, but they're racing wider, or they're working wider. So the times are slower than if they're down on the rail. So you have to take that into consideration. But like I said, unless they're steak sauces, they're around the dogs over there, and the times are going to be slower. And, you know, you just have to, again, our comments are based upon the times relative to where they're working and relative to how they're working. So, again, not all the faster times are the best works over there.
And so, in other words, don't let a 103, for instance,
Absolutely.
Don't let that dissuade you. Think, oh my God, the horse worked slow. No. He didn't work slow. He had to cover more ground than a typical 5 furlong move.
And it's the old saying, it's not how fast they work, it's how they work fast. And that's why we have the comments there. And it's just, you know, you just don't read it on the paper. It's a big difference from what you see here in the PP lines as to what you read in the comments.
Let's jump in before we let you go. Today's feature, the Coaching Club American Oaks. Second grade one of the meet with the Diana yesterday. But the 3-year-old fillies going a mile and 8. You know, obviously a select field, but you have a couple of the fillies that are right at the top of the division. Clearly, Monomoy Girl at the top right now. Do you see anything maybe kind of upsetting the apple cart, or does it go through those two?
You know, I think it goes through those two. I mean, I don't know what the racetrack will be like. It looks like Eskimo Kisses could benefit if the track comes up a little wet, and she looked good working here the other day. But basically, it goes through those two. The pace scenario is going to go a long way to determining the race. I think Monomoy Gal looks like she has a pretty tactical pace advantage over Midnight Bisou. We'll see what trainer Steve Asmussen and jockey Mike Smith decide to do to maybe counter that advantage. They are breaking inside. Will they send up there early and try to take the race away from Monomoy Girl? I'm not so sure. As a bettor, you know, I'm staying out of a race like this. At small prices, you know, still wide open race as far as at least those two go. If you're betting, you know, pick 4s, pick 5, pick 6s, you really got to use them both, I guess. And I'm just looking forward to watching this race. It may become one of the best races of the meet, even though we're in only our 3rd day. I think you can already call it that just from this matchup alone. So I'm more interested in watching than wagering on this race, but it should be a great race.
This morning you had the early tweet about Bravazzo getting ready for the Haskell.
That was Dave.
Oh,
Dave was over there. Dave saw the work. I did not. So
and Gronkowski yesterday.
Gronkowski I did see yesterday. He looked okay. I know he missed the work, but he looked fine yesterday. He had half mile 48-1 in company. Did it easily. So we'll see. We'll see how he progresses. You know, he worked pretty well going into the Belmont, and I think he ran a little bit more than Chad even expected going in, because I think he thought he needed a little more time with him to have him prepared to go 1.5 miles like that. But so it was a super effort, and I'm looking forward to seeing him back. Hopefully he'll be able to keep on a steady work pattern, and we'll get to see him once or twice here during the meet.
Well, you want steady work pattern, Mike Welsh and Dave Grenig and Donald Harris. The DRF Clocker Report, you can buy it on a daily basis. You can buy it for a week or still for the whole meet. And also Del Mar, too. You mentioned Toby Terrell. Toby's already 5 days into Del Mar, and Toby's
already had a couple of
absolutely
good winners out there. And the problem out there is there's so many private clockers. You get a good horse that works well out there, everybody's all over them. They all got clients. They all sell sheets. And I know Hollendorfer had one on opening day that was really impressive. I mean, she certainly ran at Toby's Works, but I think she was 3 to 5, and then I guess there was one yesterday too. He had another one. But no, Toby does a fantastic job too. And when those horses come this way, we will have them included in our reports.
All right, we got to wrap things up, but before we do, why don't you tout your Thursday event?
Thanks very much. I'm glad you said it, because I might have forgotten. Thursday night at the Holiday Inn, an Unbridled Affair. There's a benefit for Captain, the wonderful youth services organization that has taken just hundreds over the years, hundreds of teens off the streets in the Capital District. They've been long associated with the track, and so we'd love to have you there. I've been asked to MC, and for years Gary Contessa and Jennifer have handled it, and we wish Jennifer best of luck this week with some surgery. Otherwise, Gary would be hosting yet again. They're going to honor the team from Mind Your Biscuits, and so the team Summers will be on hand, and it should be a lot of fun. Also, West Point, in fact, Terry Finley and and Tom as well. Bellhouse.
Team Summers was chowing down nicely at the next table in Nove last night. So.
Well, I will warn the chef at Holiday Inn. Visit CaptainCares.org. We still got a few tables to fill, and Thursday night auction, and there's the beautiful painting of Mind Your Biscuits that gets auctioned off. That's always the highlight every year. Hope you'll join us as the gala season gets underway. A lot of opportunities to come and share your generosity, because so many organizations up here for horse and human help count on it every single season at Saratoga. Hope you'll be there.
And you're the Toastmaster, so should be interesting. All right, we'll wrap things up for this edition of Loose on the League. Mike, thanks for joining us.
My
Certainly
pleasure.
We'll check in as the meet goes along as well. Thanks also to Rich Migliori and George Weaver. Seth Merrill, Steve Bick, Loose on the Lead. We're here every Sunday morning throughout the meet at 10 a.m. We'll see you again next week.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.